What's up, coaster fans? If you've been following my channel since the beginning, you'll remember my top 5 US bucket list coasters video and how I plan to ride them all this summer. If not, I'll leave the link to that video in the description. Well, I am back from my trip and I've managed to get a ride on all 5 of those coasters. Some were more difficult to get on than others. This video will be my thoughts on each of these coasters that I had been dying to get on. I'll go over each of them in the order I'd previously ranked them, and then slot them into this list from worst to best. My number 5 bucket list coaster was Phoenix at Knoebels. Everyone raves about this Woody and how phenomenal the airtime is with the buzz bars. Taylor from Coaster Studios wasn't as crazy about it. He said that it was good but not great. It had good airtime at the end only. So on a rainy Tuesday morning, I notched 5 rides on this, and my first reaction was, that's it? I rode it in the front and the back several times. Once I got over the fact that the airtime was overrated, I came to appreciate the airtime that the ride did offer. But Taylor was right. It's good but not great. All the really good airtime is at the end of the ride, and of my 5 bucket list coasters, I rank this number 3. My number 4 bucket list coaster was Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom. So this was touted as the king of ejector airtime despite its small stature, and I was excited to experience this one-of-a-kind coaster. We were the first riders on a Sunday morning and grabbed the back row. When the ride ended, I was a little underwhelmed. The ride was slower than I thought it would be, and it felt like it was kind of meandering the course a little bit. By the time you hit the grand finale of those airtime hills, the lap bar is pretty tight, so the ejector air is a little subdued. The trains were something I was concerned about going in, and ultimately the lap bars did cause a bit of a problem. I always hold the lap bar up, but even in doing so, I found myself stapled at the end. I feel like I'm focusing on the negatives of this ride, even though in general I thought it was a very good ride. It has a great drop and several good airtime moments. I got 3 rides that day, and I enjoyed all of them, even though I thought it was going to be a top 20 coaster, but it wasn't. And I ranked this number 4 of the 5 bucket list coasters. My number 3 bucket list coaster was Boulder Dash at Lake Compounce. This is the one that I thought I may miss out on. It was closed when we got there, but the employees said they would try to reopen it later. So we went to Quasi and came back a couple hours before close, and they had indeed reopened it, so I was able to grab 3 rides. I love the way this looked on the POVs, winding around the mountain and building all that speed until it hits that final run of airtime hills, but I was aware that it could be a little rough. This is a long ride that makes brilliant use of the terrain, and the layout is really amazing, but it is a rough ride. It's not overly painful since I managed 3 rides, but it's definitely some moments that you wish would be smoothed out. I rode this in the front and the back, and I found the final run of airtime hills underwhelming no matter where I sat. The airtime was weak, and I was expecting more. It was a good ride, but the Golden Ticket Awards hyped this thing up way too much. It's nowhere near the best wooden coaster in the world. I put this in last place of my 5 bucket list coasters. My number 2 bucket list coaster was Steel Vengeance. And I cheated and I rode this twice on opening weekend before my cross-country trip, but I did grab 5 more rides in July. I've already expressed my opinions on this in a couple other videos on my channel if you want the complete picture of what I think about this. But let me just say that on my first bucket list video, I said this was built to be the best coaster in the world, and in my opinion, it is. It has everything you want in a coaster: height, speed, length, pacing, inversions, airtime, and it's masterful at all of these aspects. It is by far, without a doubt, my number 1 coaster, so obviously it comes in at number 1 on my list of bucket list coasters. Finally, my number 1 bucket list coaster was Fury 325, and this was the final bucket list coaster I was able to get on during my trip. The weather messed up our schedule, so we actually ended up arriving in Charlotte early, so we arrived an hour and a half before the park closed on a Sunday night, and had the opportunity to make our first ride on Fury a night ride. The thunderstorms earlier in the day drove most of the people out of the park, so Fury was a walk-on. I got the back row, right side, and I had this amazing ride-op who wasn't pushing the lap bar down at all, so I had tons of airtime room. So I put all those factors together, plus it was night, plus there was a light rain, and it was really a surreal experience to have all that as my first ride on this Giga coaster. On my bucket list video, I said I wasn't sure what this ride really had to offer because the POVs weren't all that impressive, but every enthusiast was ranking this as their #1 coaster. And let me tell you, those enthusiasts were right. This has one of the best drops I've ever experienced. It has speed, intensity, interesting elements, and it finishes with 3 spectacular airtime hills before it hits the brakes. We rode 5 times in a row without getting off that night, and then we even came back around for 2 more rides before we called it a night. The next day we got 3 more rides, so it totals up to 10 rides on Fury. And I was so impressed with this coaster. It is in my top 3 now. And it comes in right behind Steel Vengeance on my bucket list ranking. So there you have it. I enjoyed all 5 of these coasters, but 3 of the 5 did not live up to the hype. Let me know what you think of these coasters in the comments below. Also hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you all next time.